Cormac McCarthy fans, a deal has been signed for the publication of Cormac McCarthy's biography, and Tracy Daugherty is going to be the one who is writing this. And of course, this is a monumental task because Cormac was a very reclusive person, but not as reclusive as you think, as I've covered on my Cormac McCarthy biography series on this channel. We do know a lot about McCarthy, but this is a very special undertaking. And so, over the past couple days, I read Tracy Daugherty's biography of Larry McMurtry, who is a similar writer to Cormac McCarthy, way less reclusive. And so in this video today, I'm going to be giving you guys an analysis of how he writes biographies, and we're going to read a post by Daugherty talking about Cormac McCarthy to hopefully kind of get a pulse on how he's going to be writing this biography. So first of all, this isn't the worst decision. Daugherty is a very skilled biographer, and for beginners or people who just want to kind of get the whole picture, this is going to be great. I mean, let me tell you, he does a pretty good job of connecting the life events of an author and what was going on to their work, and kind of also doing like literary analysis. Like if he's writing about the time when McCarthy was writing Suttree, he'll be pulling quotes from Suttree and using them to reference back to times in Cormac McCarthy's childhood or whatever. Like he is very good at that. He is very thorough. I think this McMurtry biography was 550 pages. He has other ones that stretch over 800 pages. And supposedly he's been in Santa Fe and El Paso interviewing people for this biography. But where I think this may fall short, and we're going to have to see, is the amount of new information that's going to come out, because he is going to interview, I'm sure, people at the Santa Fe Institute and people in El Paso that guys like me would never have access to, because all the credibility I have is just a YouTube channel. He can show up and say, hey, I'm a famous biographer, I have this deal with a huge publishing company, and I'm not going to bring up the Cormac McCarthy and Jeff Epstein connection. Like, guys, your secret's safe with me. And so then we're like, oh, okay. And so they're going to tell him a lot, and we're going to hear things about his childhood from secondhand sources that we probably never knew. And then also Cormac McCarthy's extended family. He has sisters and a brother who have kids, and if he can't get in with the siblings, he might be able to get in with the kids and get a lot of stories out of them. So I'm expecting some big revelations that we've never heard before. But I also know, as a Larry McMurtry fan, that a lot of his biography was nothing new. There wasn't anything like spectacular uncovered. And when I read reviews about the biography from other people, that's what they were saying. They're like, he just talked to a couple people and just got all the old interviews and stuff that he could, and then made a very nice book out of it. And so for the typical Cormac McCarthy reader, that is going to be more than enough. But I really feel like Cormac, maybe more than any other American author who has died recently or is still alive, needs a proper biography, like a very hardcore researched one where they get access to people who were very close to McCarthy, or getting rumors about McCarthy, about his third marriage and what happened there, and people who know his son, like someone who isn't scared to go all the way. So that's not what we're going to get here. So now I would like to read to you guys Tracy Daugherty on Stella Maris and the Passenger. He wrote up a piece that's stuck behind a paywall, so I'm going to read that to you guys now so you guys don't have to pay the money to read it. In 1975, in a discussion of what kind of knowing is peculiar to literature, Donald Barthelme quoted Eugene Ionesco, "A civilization of words is a civilization distraught. Words create confusion. There are no words for the deepest experience." Barthelme conceded that mathematics, describing elusive realities beyond most people's imaginations, and therefore closer, perhaps, to the actual underlying realities of existence, was possibly the world's most beautiful language. But math did the world little good, since most people proceeded in blissful ignorance of its most complex forms. So just an FYI, that really encompasses his writing style. A lot of the time he is very heavy on the parentheses. Like, he uses a ton of them in his writing, much more so than almost any author I've read that isn't like some weird postmodernist. Barthelme speculated that there was a realm of knowledge which can be reached by artists, which is not susceptible of mathematical verification, but which is true. This is sometimes spoken as the ineffable. If there is any word I detest in the language, this would be it. But the fact is that it exists. The word ineffable is suspicious in that it suggests there might be something that is ineffable, and I believe that's the place artists are trying to get to. In 1973, Thomas Pynchon had tried to reach the ineffable using the language of rocketry and mathematical equations in his novel Gravity's Rainbow, meditation on humanity's obsession with war. In 1976, Don DeLillo would return to mathematics in his novel Ratner's Star to probe the limits of human knowledge and to suggest that the end point of knowing was utter ignorance. And now, on the cusp of turning 90, Cormac McCarthy has exceeded even these efforts. He has capped his remarkable career by giving us a pair of linked novels, The Passenger and Stella Maris, making the case that intelligence is numbers, it's not words. Words are the things we've made up. Mathematics is not. In other words, pun intended, Cormac McCarthy is fond of puns. This great American writer has approached the end of his knowing by giving up on language. Since words are his medium, his task is, by its nature, designed to fail. If these novels are failures by any word-bound definition of the novel, they are magnificently so. Like some inspired mathematicians' abandoned topological models, spinning in the straw-like tatters in midair. McCarthy has always believed that words create confusion. Accordingly, our civilization is distraught to the breaking point. His earliest novels, set in the deep American South where he was raised, use Faulknerian flash and filigree to demonstrate the impossibility of describing experience. Later, McCarthy moved out west. He pared down his novels of the deserts and the plains to the near silence of Hemingway, throwing in an occasional biblical phrase. Silence may be a more measured response to the world than raw eloquence, but it gets us no closer to escaping the limitations of description. The Passenger is yet another departure for McCarthy. It takes many side trips, but it is largely set on the Gulf Coast and the dive bars of New Orleans, where witty, aimless talk and booze-soaked philosophy is the way to pass the time. Time lies at the very center of what words and numbers reach toward. Like Pynchon and DeLillo, McCarthy sees our civilization and our rage to know as self-destructive. Bobby Western, the novel's protagonist, is the son of a man who helped develop the atomic bomb. Bobby suffers silent guilt for his father's role in the coming end of the world. When he's not schmoozing with ne'er-do-wells in the quarter, he's a salvage diver in the Gulf, working for men who hire him to rescue the culture's detritus. He's afraid of the depths, but he's plunging in. Life offers no alternatives. Bobby's other burden, aside from his father's work, is the fact that he's always been in love with his sister Alicia, a mathematical genius. Alicia is the focus of Stella Maris, the passenger's companion novel. Stella Maris takes the form of a philosophical dialogue between Alicia and her therapist, akin to Bartok, but lying, pun intended, at the opposite extremes. The characters in these novels are not characters in any traditional sense, Bob and Alice being well-known generic names in scientific thought experiments. They are Loki of language. The language of jokes, of shooting the breeze, of conspiracy theories, of philosophy, of science, our culture's word debris, ultimately unsalvageable even in the hands of a masterful writer. More than in any of his previous books, McCarthy uses words here with great pleasure and skill to reveal their exhaustion. And when words finally crumble, does he plug numbers into their absence? Does he finally break through to some core understanding of the ineffable? No. From the start of The Passenger, we know that Alicia will shatter into mental illness, hallucinating a carnival of strange creatures. She will kill herself in the snow, found with her bare head bowed and her hands slightly turned outward, like those of a certain ecumenical statues whose attitudes ask that their history be considered. Her trace resembles a dense text that few will try or even have the capacity to decipher. In a noble career spanning over 5 decades, Cormac McCarthy has thoroughly considered literary form, from elaborate linguistic structures to the aesthetics of austerity, to plumb the inefficiencies of language. In The Passenger and Stella Maris, he has left us a final testament made of fragments suggesting the beauty of life's unknown tongue. All right, there is his writing style and what we are going to expect. I would say that is almost akin. There are times in those first couple paragraphs where he can write very well, but then there are times where it kind of feels a little bit plodding and boring and almost just like walking us through the steps. There is, not too much literary analysis going on. And with someone like Cormac and what we talk about on this show, if he's going to dive into that and make us walk through all that, I would appreciate if there was a little bit more risk taking going on, because I guess the role of the biographer is to only say what's true. But I feel like Cormac's guilt and his trauma from his father and a lot of these different things is very present and needs to be explored. And if there are some mistakes in there, then that is better. But from what he's done in the past and the publishing house he's working with, I think they just kind of want a pretty straightforward biography. So I hope that he gets access to some people that we've never heard from before, and that will make it interesting. Because if he doesn't have that, it's just going to be a conglomeration of the very small information that's already been compiled by people in the Cormac McCarthy Society.